Welcome to the Tenaroo Foundation's webinar series. This session's topic is an introduction to the Form Builder software. In this session, I will cover what the Form Builder is and when to use it. I'll also go through how to build a form and set up templates, and then I'll show you how to embed the form on your Tentaroo website or mini site. Our Form Builder software is a separate piece of software that is available to all Tentaroo clients, and it can be found at forms.tentaroo.com. This software allows you to create customized forms for all sorts of data collection, such as quick one-time registrations or to collect information from your users. Embed your forms right on your Tentaroo web pages to share them with your units and families. And even if you don't have a full website with us, you can still embed forms on a Tentaroo website. And I'll talk about this when I show how to embed forms later in this webinar. Some examples of when to use a form include camp staff applications, fundraiser or donation forms, product sales that aren't connected with your events, any events that are open to the wider public, and then also collecting supplemental information for the events or facilities modules. For example, in the facilities module, non-unit accounts are not automatically granted permission to book facilities online. You can set up a form that collects any information you need to vet your non-unit groups before allowing them to book your facilities. Now, although highly customizable, the Form Builder lacks the advanced functionality of the Events module and shouldn't be used in lieu of it. Users don't have to log in to fill out a form, which can be handy, but that also has its drawbacks since users can't modify their registrations or make incremental payments. Forms also don't save any information for the unit or family, so the user has to fill out all the fields every time they register, and they won't have access to a history of the registrations through the Form Builder. Reports available here are also much more limited, although we do incorporate form payment information in your main accounting reports. Some examples of registrations that are better in the Events module include any group registrations with multiple named participants. Use the Events module. If you have registrations that need incremental payments or changes over time, and events that use early base and late rates. These early base and late rates can be done in a form, but it's much easier in the Events module, and we recommend building those in the Events module. Now, as with all of our Tentaroo features, please do not collect medical information. None of our software is HIPAA compliant. Each council has a single login to their Form Builder account that is shared by users within the council. This is very different from the main Tentaroo system, where each admin has their own account and permissions. Your Tentaroo logins will not work in the Form Builder. We recommend only sharing your Form Builder login credentials with a few trained staff members who are responsible for building or managing forms. Please reach out to us when you wish to reset your password, and we suggest doing this periodically, particularly when staff with the login leave your council. Due to the shared nature of the Form Builder accounts, this is the one time when we keep a record of your login credentials. This helps us provide timely support for your Form Builder questions. So when you are setting up your Form Builder password or resetting it, please do not use the same password you use in other software. If you need access to your council's Form Builder account, please check with your primary system administrator first and reach out to us if the council does not currently have access to your account. Let's log in now and take a quick tour around the Form Manager screen. The Form Manager is the landing page for your account. From here, you can create, edit, and manage your forms. If your council is brand new to using the Form Builder, this list may be empty. The remaining features I will be showing you will be there once you start adding forms. And the longer you use Form Builder, the longer your list of forms will become. Older, inactive forms cannot be deleted from your account. However, you do have several options to sort and filter your forms to keep your active forms on top. So along the top of the Form Manager screen, we have a search bar that lets you find forms based on titles or tags. I'll talk about tags in a moment. You can also sort your forms using various criteria with this AZ button in the top right. One of the sort options is by form title, and this is one way you can keep active forms on top. Let me explain. If you have inactive forms and you rename them with Z's in front, then you can sort by the form title, and all of your Z forms will go to the bottom of your list. So anything that you have that you are actively using can stay up on top of your list where you can get to them faster. All right, so now let's go back and talk about tags. These are tags, and tags are added using this label button over here on the right. And you can add anything to tags that helps you organize your forms, such as the name of the person who created the form, the district or organization this form is for, or if this is a template that you want to be able to reuse. Some of our councils tag their forms with active. And this status label is useful to, again, filter for forms that are in current use. So this is another way to hide the old forms, as it allows you to search by tag for active, and only the forms with the active tag will appear on your list. And then when the form is no longer active, you can remove that tag, and that form will be removed from your list. It's, of course, still there. It just isn't shown when you search for active forms. Now, when you click on one of these forms, you're going to see a lot of additional buttons to help you manage your form. Today, I will primarily focus on Edit, but I will also visit View, Code, Disable, and Duplicate. As your form list grows, especially if you need to search to find the form you need, it helps to right-click on the button and open Link in New tab. And this keeps your search results active on the original tab, and then you can make your edits and save, and your original tab still has your place in the list preserved, so you can visit the next section and keep working on the form. Now, when you are editing a form, and I will talk about this as I go along here, it's always a good idea to leave by clicking Save Form, and then click either Yes, continue editing to keep working on your form, or I'm finished to exit. And this, I would recommend doing this just as a matter of course. So even if you haven't made any changes, it's a good habit to get into. Also, we have found occasionally that if you don't if you don't save, you just exit without saving the form, sometimes there's been an issue with that form, and it may cause issues if you want to edit the form from a different computer, or if others need to edit the form later on. All right, so let's create a new form. Click the green Create New Form button, and you will go straight into the form editor for a new untitled form. To start customizing your new form, click on the title, and this will open the Form Properties tab in the floating box on the right. This box will travel down the screen with us as our form grows. In the form title field, then, we're going to rename this to your working title to the title you need on this form. For this one, I am going to use template basic form. Now let's talk about templates for a second. We recommend creating a handful of template forms to duplicate and then refine for specific needs rather than building from scratch each time. These can be simple general templates or complex forms tailored to a specific recurring event. Having templates to start with saves you time, reduces the chances of human error, and it makes it easier to set up forms for new events. You can also duplicate a form from a previous event that has the structure you need. Once you've made a copy, you can then modify the copy to meet this year's needs. Just remember that as you go along, you want to check each section, like notifications or payment settings, to make sure all of your data is updated for your new form. Now let's go back over to the new form that I was creating. Here we are. And let's talk about the next setting, which is the description. This will appear below your title, and it explains the purpose of the form or provides guidelines for completing the form. Both the title and the description will appear with your form when you embed it on your website. You also have the option to hide title and description from public view. And this is useful for several reasons, and the two main ones are when you want to use the more robust formatting options on the Tentaroo webpage to describe your form or provide instructions, or when your page title matches the form title and you don't have other content to display on the page. Hiding the form title means the title only shows up once, so you don't have that redundancy. Then we have your submission confirmation message. This message is shown to your users after they fully complete the form. You can customize the message they see, such as a special thank you or giving them next steps in the process. You can also send them to another website after they complete the form. Maybe they need to complete their health forms prior to the event, so you could send them to the scouting.org page for the annual health and medical record. If you want to customize the submission confirmation behavior, depending on their answers, you can set up conditional rules in the logic section. And I'm going to cover this in the logic and advanced features webinar. For each of these sections, you can customize the text that appears using HTML tags. This includes adding hyperlinks. Now, I gave hints on how to create HTML using the text editor and the website module during the advanced page layout and galleries webinar. So you can copy and paste from there instead of writing it yourself. There are more form properties available under the Show More Options button here at the bottom, but I'm going to skip those for today. I will be covering those in depth in the Logic and Advanced Features webinar as well. All right, so let's shift gears to adding fields to our form. The brown Add a Field tab in the floating box lists all the field types available. There are a few things that just about every form needs, so I am going to start with those. And the first are name and email. So let's add a name and an email field to our form. When you're adding fields, you can either click on the field type like I just did, and that'll add it to the next position on the page, or you can drag and drop a field to exactly where you want it. So you could select the order from the beginning. These two fields are necessary in order to set up notifications, and they must be required. So let's set those as required right now. I'll cover how to use these fields to set up notifications in a future webinar. And then, if your form is monetized, you'll need to add a GL code field as well. All of the forms that collect money automatically pass that accounting information through to the accounting reports for reconciliation and tracking. To have GL accounts included in those reports for forms, you need to set up a field with your GL account number prior to publishing the form. For that, you will use either the single line text field or a number field. For either type of field, you need to set up a few settings to make it work. First, your field label needs to be GL. Under Rules, you want to check the box for Read Only. This keeps the browser's autofill from overriding your GL number. Then under Field Visibility, we want to switch this to Hidden. You want to use Hidden and not Admin Only because Admin Only won't allow the field to be filled out during the initial form submission. So what does that mean? That means that the field would be submitted as blank and your GL number won't be included in the accounting reports. Next, we'll go down to Default Value. This is where you're going to enter the actual GL account that you want to send through the accounting reports. And this is best to be done with no dots, dashes, or spaces so that it shows up in the reports correctly. A best practice is to make sure you have your GL number added here prior to publishing your form. If you don't have the GL added here when you receive entries, you can still add it as the default value for future entries, but unlike with the Events and Facilities modules, previously received entries do not automatically update and will need to be edited individually to have the GL information sent to the accounting reports. If you run into this situation, you will need to change the field properties temporarily to turn off Read Only and save. Then you'll go into each entry, edit them to update the GL number and save, and then return to the editor to turn Read Only back on so the browser doesn't automatically fill something in on your GL field. Of course, if your form isn't monetized, you won't need a GL field. You can skip this part of things altogether. Those are the basic required fields. From here, you can continue adding fields to collect whatever data you need. So let's go and look at the different types of fields you can add. Now, I find it easiest to think of these field types in groups. First, we have some general data fields. Single line and paragraph text fields will collect varying amounts of typed information, and the number field can be used to either present or collect information that is a number. This one's good for collecting their unit numbers. Then we have three field types that let your users make selections from a list of options: checkboxes, multiple choice, and drop-down. Checkboxes allow users to select more than one option, like ordering different sizes of shirts for their group. You can then pair with a number field to calculate how many of each size, which I will talk about more later on. Multiple choice and drop-down fields only allow one selection, like choosing their district from a list. Both multiple choice and drop-downs have nearly identical functions, but drop-downs are generally better when users are selecting from a longer list of options. That doesn't want to show up for me. As you're building your form, you can change the field type between these three. Once you save the form, however, the field type is set and cannot be changed. This box will be gray and inactive. A trick to work around this if you need to change what field type you initially set, let's say you set it as checkboxes, but you only want them to pick one, is you can duplicate the checkboxes field. On the new field type, change the field type to the version you need, and then go back and delete the original field, as long as it doesn't have any entry data yet. I'll talk more about deleting fields in a little bit. Then we have contact information fields: name, phone, address, and email. Let's scroll down a little so we can see those. And then we have date and time fields. These aren't used terribly often since the form entries will be date and time stamped already, but date can be helpful for collecting things like the YPT training dates. Price is pretty clear and is one option for setting an amount due. And then we have website, where users can enter a URL and file upload to submit documents or photos. Matrix choice fields can be used for poll type questions like rating a bunch of different options. However, we don't generally recommend them because they can start to have issues or bugs if they're too big, and they're always cumbersome in your reports. And then we have some organizational fields. Section breaks visually group your fields and provide more information to users, such as adding instructions for filling out the form. You can use HTML tags to format the section break text, like adding a hyperlink to send users to another website or to download a document. And page breaks physically organize your form onto multiple pages. When you use a page break, I like adding a section break to the top so you can explain this next page a little bit more. The last field, signature, is a field where users can sign on the screen. As of this webinar, this field is not supported on some devices, so use this field with caution. Finally, you can rearrange fields by dragging and dropping them into a new order. All right, so now I'm going to go back up to the top of my form to dive into the settings that are available for each field. Clicking on a field so that it turns green will open up the green Field Properties tab in the floating box. This is where you can change the settings for any of the form fields. Most of the settings in this box are going to be similar for most types of fields. So I'm going to highlight those once using my single line text field, and then I'll talk about some special settings for other field types. You'll also, when you have one of these selected, you'll also see duplicate and delete buttons at the bottom. Beware of deleting fields once a form has entries. Doing so will permanently erase that field's data on all existing entries. To preserve your data but take the field out of use, you can change the visibility from visible to hidden so that you can retain the field, but it won't be active anymore. And I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. In the top right corner of every field properties screen, you will find the field number. This indicates the field's order in the form, and it can be used to create logic rules or set up merge tags, especially if you have several similar fields. Then you have your field label, which is the title that appears above the field in the form, and it also sets the header row on your data exports. Next is field type, and similar to the checkboxes, multiple choice, and drop-down trio, you can change the field type between all of the other field types as you are building a new form. This version of the list has every option except for those three choice fields. As I said before, the field type is set once you save the form with that field on it. But you can use the same duplicate trick here to change the field type without completely rebuilding the field. Then delete or hide the old field so it is no longer available to your users. Then we have field size. This lets you change the size, either width or height of the field as a visual indicator for how much information you expect to receive. For example, if we use this field for unit number, we could set this to small since unit numbers are only a few digits long. Next, we have rules. You can make most of these fields required, and then you could also set to not allow duplicates. And then no duplicates prevents the same information, like a BSA ID, from being used multiple times in separate entries. Next, we have read only. This is useful when you want to present information to users that they cannot modify. Now let's go back to that field visibility box. Visible is the default setting and is the most commonly used option here. We will cover using logic to selectively show or hide fields in the Logic and Advanced Features webinar. You'll want to use hidden for things like your GL field or to hide fields you no longer want but that already have entry data. It's best usually to combine this with read only so the browser doesn't add something here that you don't want. If your field is hidden, make sure to uncheck required. If you set it as required, your users will receive a cryptic error message that they need to complete a field that they cannot see, and they won't be able to complete your form. Then we have admin only. As I mentioned earlier, making this field available only to admin users after the form is submitted. This means that your users will not see your field at all, and the only way to add data to an admin-only field is for the admin to edit the entry, fill out the field, and save. This is useful for information that an admin will add after the fact, such as a field for comments about payments received at the office. You do not want to make this one read only though, otherwise you won't be able to use it. Some field types have a range option. Range can be used for something like a maximum number of characters or digits or a minimum donation amount. On this one, let's say we set a range for the number of characters or the number of words we want. Then we have your default value. And I talked about using the default value field for the GL where you're populating the number that you want there. This can also be used to set up a prompt or an example of the data that you want to collect from your users. So you can enter in a suggestion that you want them to complete this, and then you can auto hide the default value so that when they click in that field, your prompt goes away and they can fill out their own data. Then we have guidelines for user. And this adds a pop-up to the right of the field with your text. And this will show up when your users hover over the field. This can be used for added instructions. However, the form is going to narrow for all of the fields, and that form width may not look as good. So what I tend to prefer is using a section break to provide these instructions, since section breaks don't disappear or change the width of the form. All right, now I'm going to jump through some of the other fields to see some of their unique settings. So for a number field, here's our number field. You have an additional setting to enable as quantity field. These fields can be paired with a second monetized field like checkboxes, multiple choice, or drop down. and it'll calculate a total due for a number of items. Let's say you have red hats. They check red hats. They see this number field. They say, I want two. And whatever money you set on that red hats field is going to calculate by the number. Now, I'm not going to go into that in detail today. I'm going to talk about that in the monetization webinar for payment settings. So then next we have the three multiple choice options where users can select from a list. On these, you can customize the options for users to choose from in a couple of different ways. First, you can directly edit the default titles to something else. And then you can use the green and plus sign and the red minus sign to add or remove options. You can also use this bulk insert choices button to open up a box where you can add lots of options, one per line, and this will save you some time. Let's add those, and there are all of our options very quickly. If you select an option in the field properties box, that makes it the default value that is selected when your users come to the form. If you don't want a default value, you can click it again, and that will be unselected, and then they get to choose from all of the options. You can also let users add an other option where they can enter a custom item. Just be aware that this other option, unlike the main options on this field, cannot be monetized. You can monetize the main ones, but not this other option. Another setting for the checkboxes and multiple choice is that you can set how the columns appear. You can set the number of columns used for this. And you can play around with how you want your columns to appear for each of these types of fields. Then on either multiple choice or drop-down, which offer a single choice to users, you can also enable choice limits. This lets you set one limit that applies to all options, which can be a limitation if you have different quantities of a thing available. So you're not able to set a separate choice limit on each option on the list. An example of when you could use this would be your popcorn pickup sign up. Let's say you only want 3 groups arriving at a single time to pick up their popcorn. So you could limit the choices here to 3 and use the options to set your different times. Only 3 groups then could pick a specific slot, and then when that has been maxed out, the groups will see a message that that option is no longer available and they have to pick something else. Now I am going to skip the name and phone. Yep, I'm going to skip name and phone as they are pretty simple, but let's take a look at the address field. When you're asking for an address, you can opt to hide address line 2, which is usually used for apartment numbers or PO boxes. So if you don't need those, you can hide that line. And then you can also restrict to US state selection. And that sets it to the United States, and then they just pick from the states list. Both of these settings can simplify your form, which is shown as a preview here on the left. And then I'm going to again skip the email field because it's pretty simple. And let's talk about date. Now, like I said earlier, date isn't used all that frequently, but you may need it from time to time, like when you need to collect the YPT date from your group. This field has quite a few settings where you can define acceptable dates, like you can set it where you aren't allowing past dates or you aren't allowing future dates. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but you see all these green question marks that are appearing next to each of these settings? These are help text fields. And when you click on one of these, it's going to show a little box with extra instructions about how to complete that form or how to set that field. So here in the default date field in particular here, that help text is giving several suggestions for how you can use this to define the date. So this can be words like today or tomorrow, a week from now, and that will set the default date that appears here. And then your users can override it, or you can set it as read only so they cannot. Similar options are available under the time field. And this would be if you want the user to input a certain time about when they're going to come visit your facility or something. I'm going to skip around again and go to the upload a file field. If you want your users to upload a document or a photo or something like that, they can do so with this field. And you can decide if you want to not allow certain file types, or you can say I only allow certain file types. So if you want pictures, you can define the picture formats that are acceptable so they can't upload just any random thing. Now, these files do not currently get emailed as attachments with the notifications and have to be downloaded from the form builder. Jumping around again, let's take a look at that page break. Now, page breaks are a very different kind of field, and the other settings that I have talked about don't actually apply here. But for each page break, you can customize the wording on the submit button. And then for subsequent pages, so let's go down to the final page break here on this form, you can also customize the previous or back button. Page breaks will also add a pagination header at the very top of your form, which can be customized with descriptive titles for each step. You can also choose between different styles, so there's complete steps, there's a progress bar, or if this doesn't work for the data that you're collecting, you can disable it and then your users won't see the pagination header at all. Okay, those are all the fields and the
Annika,
primary.
real quick, can you go back to the upload?
Oh, sure.
There is an option here to send the file as an email attachment.
Oh,
So if you check that off, it can send it as an email attachment, but it won't work very well if the files are too large. But then again, the form builder, we don't support very large file uploads anyway. It's really not designed for that anyway. So for most files that you might receive using the form builder, then it would probably work to send them as an email attachment. We actually use one of these forms for receiving my.scouting imports, and it is emailing us the data for that. So
okay.
so yeah, I'm pretty sure that should work.
Yes, good point. And then you can also, in that case, limit the file size. So if you want to keep your file sizes from getting too crazy for that, you can do that here. I think in the case of our my.scouting files, we have that limited to 10 megabytes. But if you're getting a lot of these, I'd keep them smaller than that even. All right, good catch, good catch. Okay, so now I'm going to save the form. And when that's done saving, I'm going to click I'm finished. And the next thing I want to do is test my test my form to make sure that it's working. So I said this was a template. So let's find my template. And that's this one, template basic form. And I'm going to open the view in another tab. And then this is where I can go through each of the fields that I added and test them and make sure they're all working the way I need them to work. Now, this form, besides being a test template for our webinar, is not really ready to go yet. We haven't set up notifications. If I want any logic, that's not there yet. So I'll be covering those in future webinars, particularly notifications in the notifications and payment settings webinar. But this is a good practice for making sure that everything is set up correctly prior to embedding the form in your website and turning it on for users to fill out. Now, let's assume that I have finished setting up my form. It's good to go. So let's look at another basic element of the form building process, and that is sharing your form with your users. Now, as I sit here on this view link, I am going to say, do not share this view link directly with your users. This view page is not branded for your council. It is not as user-friendly on mobile as embedding the form on a Tentaroo website. And instead, the best way to share this form with your users is to embed it on a page of your Tentaroo website or mini site. Embedding the forms on a Tentaroo hosted site or mini site includes a secure connection that ensures that the form works properly. If you try to embed your form on another website, the form may reload continuously, and forms that collect payment or that have multiple pages simply will not work. Before I get into exactly how to embed a form on your page, I want to speak to clients who have a third-party website. We provide you with a simplified mini site at no additional charge that allows you to host your forms on a secure Tentaroo site. You can then link to your mini site page from your third-party website to connect your users with your form. So these embedding instructions are for every client. So first, let's go over to our editor, and here we are, and let's grab our code. So I'm going to open the code in a new tab. And then here I'm going to click once in this field, left click once in this field, and that automatically highlights the whole thing. Then you can right click and copy. And now we're going to go to the website editor. And in the page editor, if you scroll down past your content, past your other fields, near the bottom is an embed code. Sorry, near the bottom is an embed form card. When you expand this, you have a field where you can paste your code, save, and then take a look at your live page, and there is your form. Once a form is embedded, the page's content section, galleries, contacts, and map can all be used to give visitors additional information and promote your event or campaign. Even if you're just using the free mini site, you can use these features to build a compelling page for your users, so it's not just a form on a page. Unless you want that, of course. And then you can copy the link to that page and share it with your users anywhere you need to. All right. That covers the basics for setting up a form and hosting it on your website. There are other important aspects to forms, such as notifications and payment settings, which I will cover in the next webinar. If you have questions about using any of the features I showed you today, please send an email to support@tentaroo.com or schedule a training at admin.tentaroo.com/training.